Welcome back, everyone, to The Deep Dive. And hey, a special shout out to all of you joining from the Cracking Chronicles BookTube community.
Yeah, welcome.
We're really excited you're back with us. We're going to be exploring more from the All Souls trilogy world today.
Absolutely.
So if you caught our last discussion comparing the Discovery of Witches show and the books, well, today we're going even deeper.
Think of it as layer 2. We're picking up some threads from last time and really digging into some brilliant material.
Okay, so what's the plan? What are we focusing on?
Well, the big goal today is to unpack how magic is evolving in Diana Bishop's story. We'll look at her family history, especially her dad's side, the Proctors, and how all that shapes who she is.
Right, her identity.
Exactly. You might find some surprising connections, some real aha moments, I think.
Okay, let's get into it then. The Proctor family. That name alone feels significant, doesn't it? And it's not just about Diana.
No, not at all. Their history is, well, it's directly linked to the real Salem Witch Trials, which is intense.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just background lore.
Not just lore. It brings in this whole layer of actual historical trauma and this deep ancestral legacy that Diana suddenly has to deal with. But maybe even bigger than that is the revelation that Diana is a chimera.
A chimera, what does that mean in this context?
It means she has two completely distinct magical bloodlines, not just one.
Whoa. Okay, it's a game changer. So she's not just a weaver. How does that affect her magic?
Precisely. It suggests her magic might be, well, more fluid, less defined than we thought. It's like her abilities aren't just tied to one lineage.
Right.
They could be shaped by the memories, the experiences, the magical imprints of both sides. It opens up a whole new range of possibilities for her powers.
So does that make her someone who could, unite different magical groups?
Yeah.
Because she embodies both.
That's one possibility, yeah. Could she be a unifying force?
Or, and maybe this is darker, does it make her a bigger target? If she holds the power of two lines, that sounds incredibly valuable.
Or threatening.
Exactly, threatening to some groups. And think about Diana herself. Finding out you're fundamentally dual like that must cause a huge internal identity crisis, right?
Oh, absolutely. It forces her to question everything about her place, her identity. How do you navigate having these perhaps conflicting legacies inside you?
Yeah.
It definitely reframes not just her power, but her whole role, her responsibilities maybe, within that magical world.
It really does. Okay, so that connects to how magic inheritance itself is understood.
Yeah.
Because back in A Discovery of Witches, it felt more straightforward.
How so?
It was about latent talent passed down through bloodlines, almost genetic,
Yeah.
something dormant that gets switched on.
That's a great point. The early focus was very much on that almost romantic idea. Magical blood equals power potential. But with the Blackbird Oracle, it seems to be shifting.
Shifting how?
Well, the emphasis now seems to be more on memory, ancestral legacy, this idea of a magical imprint.
Magical imprint, okay, like an echo.
Kind of. Less purely genetic, more like resonating with the magic of your ancestors. Like their magical lives leave a stamp on your own potential. It implies this much deeper, more active connection to the past influencing the present.
So it's not just who your parents are, but the echoes of all your magical ancestors kind of bouncing around inside you.
Something like that, yeah.
And the tone feels different too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The early books had that big romance plot driving things alongside the magic.
Yeah.
Now it feels weightier.
Yes, exactly. More about the consequences, the burden of this ancestral power, ancestral reckoning.
Ancestral reckoning, wow.
And that shift in how magic is presented, it really mirrors Diana's own journey, doesn't it? She's moving past the initial discovery, the relationship focus, into understanding the deep responsibilities that come with who she is.
Yeah, it's like the whole series is maturing alongside her.
Definitely. Reflecting her own path of self-discovery.
Okay, let's go back to that ancestral history, specifically Salem. You said it's not just backdrop, it actively shapes the magical world today.
Absolutely. The real historical trauma of Salem is baked into the magical world's present. It's this constant reminder of the persecution, especially for witches.
Right.
And that history isn't just past, it's left scars. Real intergenerational trauma that still affects the magical community now.
So here's something interesting the sources mention. Despite that shared history of suffering, witches in 2017, when Blackbird Oracle is set, are still shown being, spiteful, jealous,
Vindictive.
towards each other. You'd almost expect more solidarity after everything they went through historically.
It's a complex point, isn't it? It shows that even facing huge external threats and shared trauma, internal conflicts, personal failings, they still exist.
Yeah.
It avoids making the community seem unrealistically unified.
Makes them feel more real, I guess.
Yeah, it explores the complexities of any group, magical or not, and Diana's journey becomes partly about connecting with those forgotten women, 𝕠𝕟𝕚𝕚, her own ancestors who are caught up in the trials.
So understanding their experience becomes part of her own responsibility now.
Exactly. It adds a significant weight to what she does.
Okay. And connecting to deeper meanings, the raven. That symbol seems crucial in the Blackbird Oracle.
Oh, hugely. The raven carries so much symbolic weight, transformation, prophecy, but here, especially, the wisdom of ancestors.
Yeah.
So when it arrives with that message, "It's time you came home, Diana," it's like a direct call from her heritage. It signals this major turning point tied to her legacy.
And home. That concept seems to be changing for Diana, too. It's not just a place anymore like Blackfriars or their house in New Haven.
Yeah. Home is becoming less about geography and more about, well, magical belonging. An internal reckoning, maybe?
An emotional reckoning.
Yes. With her past, her powers, her whole identity, she needs to figure out what home means now, and it's probably not just about the physical places she knows.
So it's finding that internal alignment, that connection to her full legacy, to feel truly home within herself, magically speaking.
Precisely. Integrating everything, the dual heritage, the family history, to find her authentic place.
Okay, let's look at the plot points from the book outline for the Blackbird Oracle. How does all this actually play out? We know it's set in summer 2017.
Yep. Diana and Matthew are in New Haven. Their twins, Becca and Pip, are almost 7, which is apparently a key age for magical kids.
Right, okay. Things seem relatively normal then.
For a bit, but then that dying raven shows up with the message.
It's time you came home, Diana. That's the spark.
That's the inciting incident, yeah. And at the same time, the congregation is putting pressure on them. They want the twins tested for their magical abilities.
Oh, okay. Double pressure.
Yeah.
So Diana decides to go to Ravenswood, Massachusetts to protect the kids and figure out this message.
Exactly. Ravenswood seems to be the heart of her Proctor family history, and there she meets her great-aunt, Gwyneth Proctor.
A new relative.
Yeah, and Gwyneth seems to be the key to understanding the Proctor legacy in something called higher magic.
Higher magic. What's that about? Sounds like a level up from what we've seen.
It does. It's a deeper level of magic, maybe dealing with fundamental forces like light, shadow, darkness, more complex stuff.
Okay. And it's while she's learning this that she discovers she's a chimera.
That's right. This massive revelation about her dual nature weaver and adept in this higher magic happens under Gwyneth's guidance. It really highlights just how powerful she potentially is.
And there are more family secrets.
Yes, another hidden branch of the family tree. It just adds more layers to her paternal side. And through Gwyneth, Diana also learns the Proctors have this long, complicated history with the congregation and higher magic. It wasn't just the bishops involved.
Okay, so the Proctors were deeply involved too. That must complicate things with the congregation even more.
You bet. As Diana learns more, and presumably gets stronger, the tensions ramp up. A central conflict is her needing to protect her kids while dealing with all the political and magical fallout from her family's past and her own power.
So it really boils down to that tension protecting her family versus embracing this huge, complex legacy.
That seems to be the core, and it leaves you with a big question to ponder, doesn't it? Now that Diana knows about her dual nature, this chimera status, and understands the weight of the Proctor history, how is she going to redefine her role?
Yeah, not just in the magical community, but maybe in the wider world too.
Exactly. It's definitely something to think about as her story continues.
So for all of you who really get into character analysis over on BookTube, we have kind of an intriguing question today.
Oh, yeah.
What if Diana Bishop, this powerful heroine we all admire, actually had this sort of hidden flaw? Maybe a touch of arrogance that, well, makes her journey even more complex.
That's a really interesting angle. We often focus on the big, obvious struggles, don't we? The external fights.
Exactly.
But today, we're going to look a bit deeper, maybe at something less obvious in Diana's development.
And just to be clear, this isn't about knocking Diana down.
Not at all. It's about appreciating the nuances, the layers in her growth, understanding the full picture.
Right. So, setting the scene. It's summer 2017. Diane and Matthew are back in New Haven. They've got the twins. Life seems, well, maybe settling down a bit.
Relatively speaking, yes. But then things get shaken up pretty fast. There's this cryptic message, right, from a dying raven.
Yeah, telling her to go home. And then, almost immediately, the congregation starts asking questions about the kids' magic. Big pressure.
And that's the trigger. It sends Diana heading towards Ravenswood. It's really on this journey as she starts exploring what the sources call higher magic, this deeper, more complex magic that we see our main theme emerge.
Right.
The subtle, maybe developing arrogance. So, okay, let's unpack that a bit.
Okay, so this higher magic, it gives her immense power, obviously. But the source notes something interesting. It opens new power, but also distances her from others. How does that distance maybe feed into this feeling of being different, possibly superior?
Well, it's a common thing, isn't it? When someone gains really unique abilities, it can isolate them. Their perspective shifts. She becomes more headstrong, sometimes reckless in her choices.
Reckless, okay.
Yeah, and that recklessness, driven by this newfound power, it could easily look like arrogance from the outside, or maybe even from the inside, subconsciously. A belief that the usual rules or consequences don't quite apply anymore.
Like the power itself is a shield.
Exactly. It's like this allure of control and knowledge can actually become a flaw in itself. The pursuit of power can subtly twist into, thinking you're maybe more important or more right than others.
Right. And Matthew notices this change, doesn't he? He senses something's different.
He does. And crucially, his concern does not come from a place of control, but from his intuition.
Oh, that's a key distinction.
Yeah.
It's not him being possessive.
No, it frames it as him intuitively picking up on an internal shift within Diana. It keeps the focus on her experience, her development.
Okay, so then we get this really specific observation.
This is fascinating, yeah. It says she perceives herself as the most powerful witch while she's still a novice in higher magic.
Wow, okay, so there's a gap between how powerful she feels or thinks she is and her actual experience level in this specific advanced magic.
Precisely. And that disconnect, that's often where arrogance can creep in, isn't it? Overestimating your current abilities based on recent successes or raw potential. It's like learning to drive and thinking after a week you're ready for Formula One.
That makes total sense. And this overestimation could cause problems. She's unaccepting of the fact that there will always be those who are more powerful.
And in a world like theirs, filled with ancient vampires, powerful demons, other witches with centuries of knowledge.
Yeah, refusing to accept that someone else might know more or be stronger, especially when you're still learning this higher magic, it definitely sounds like arrogance could be playing a role.
It points towards that, yeah. The night Matthew and Diana go into the labyrinth on Proctor Farm, Diana crosses a significant line with Matthew.
Okay, so something specific happens there.
Yeah.
An action she takes.
Likely fueled by this power surge, maybe this feeling of knowing best, that causes real friction between them. Something tangible for you readers to perhaps recall or look out for.
We also have to factor in her unique nature, right?
Both a weaver and an adept in higher magic. That makes her uniquely powerful.
So being literally unique, one of a kind, powerful, how does that contribute?
Well, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's her strength, her destiny, perhaps. But being so special, so inherently powerful could easily foster a sense of exceptionalism. If you're not careful, it could lead to feeling you're above the norm, maybe exempt from the usual checks and balances or the need for humility.
A tough balance to strike.
Definitely. Recognizing your unique gifts without letting it inflate your ego.
And this is all happening while she's actively learning, right? She goes to Ravenswood, studies with Gwyneth, dives into light, shadow, and darkness. These massive concepts within higher magic.
Exactly. It's like she's drinking from a fire hose of power and knowledge.
Could that speed itself be an issue? Like her abilities are maybe expanding faster than her wisdom or self-awareness can keep up?
That's a very real possibility. Rapid growth in any area can lead to overconfidence if introspection doesn't keep pace. You master some complex skills and maybe start to assume you've mastered everything, including the subtleties and the potential dangers.
So, thinking about you watching, maybe you're on BookTube, you love dissecting characters. How does this idea of subtle arrogance change things?
Yeah, how might it show up in her interactions, maybe in ways you hadn't considered before? Does it cause friction that seemed to come from somewhere else?
Does it make her, I don't know, more human, more relatable because she has this potential flaw alongside her strengths?
Do some of Diana's choices or clashes look different now? Can you pinpoint moments where maybe this aspect of her character subtly influences events?
We'd love to know what you think. Definitely something to discuss and analyze further in the BookTube community. What specific instances come to your mind?
And guess what? It's not over.
Not by a long shot.
The All Souls series is definitely continuing beyond the Blackbird Oracle, and that book itself, it's laid some really fascinating groundwork for what might be coming next.
Absolutely. I mean, what's really compelling is how the Blackbird Oracle doesn't just, tell another story. It actually broadens the whole mythology. It sets up potential paths we hadn't even considered before.
Yeah.
The novel also really explores the complexities of power, what it means to have it, the ethics of using it.
The responsibility.
Exactly. And crucially, it's still about Diana's journey of self-discovery. She keeps unearthing new parts of who she is.
Right.
And finally, there's this constant pull, this tension between honoring her heritage and needing to forge her own path forward.
Which leads perfectly into this fascinating question one of our sources raised. Is Diana changing? Is she maybe becoming less of the peacemaker we knew and more of a disruptor? The sources hint she might be becoming more unpredictable.
It's a really interesting angle, and you have to wonder what's driving that potential shift, right? Motherhood changes everything, for one.
Absolutely changes your priorities.
Definitely. Plus, think about the trauma she's been through. That could easily lead to a more assertive approach, maybe even a harder edge.
Fair point.
And then there's the sheer weight of this massive family legacy she's just uncovered. That's got to have an impact. So the question really becomes, can she be both? Can she still be a force for change and someone who seeks harmony? Or are those roles now in conflict?
It's a really compelling duality to think about. And speaking of thinking about possibilities, pretty interesting theories for the future.
Oh, yeah.
One that really caught my eye was this idea that maybe Diana develops a kind of arrogance, and that it might stem from Peter Knox's interference during her higher magic examination, almost like a lingering psychic residue or something close to possession. What do you think about that?
Huh. That's actually a really insightful take. Her dive into higher magic wasn't entirely, let's say, pure. That there might have been unintended consequences from Knox.
Right.
Yeah. If even a tiny trace of his influence, his ambition, latched onto her, it could absolutely show up in subtle ways. Changes in her attitude, her choices. It's plausible.
And another theory floating around, maybe a bit more straightforward, is that her kids, Becca and Pip, might eventually become even more powerful than she is.
That feels almost inevitable in these kinds of stories, doesn't it?
Kind of, yeah. Generational power shifts.
Exactly. It's a classic trope in magical family lines. The next generation often inherits and surpasses. Plus, they're twins. That could mean their combined potential is off the charts.
True.
Feels like a natural direction to consider, and it would definitely shake up the dynamics, family, magical world, everything.
Then there's the slightly more worrying idea mentioned. Could this potential arrogance, whether it's from Knox or just the sheer scale of her power, could it actually isolate her, push Matthew and her family away?
Oof. That would be heartbreaking, wouldn't it? After everything they've been through together.
Totally.
But power can isolate. If she struggles to handle these new abilities, or if this chimera status makes her feel fundamentally different, superior maybe, yeah, it could absolutely strain those vital connections. It raises serious questions about the personal cost of power.
Exactly. And that brings us to you listening right now. We've talked through a lot about Diana's journey in the Blackbird Oracle. So, what are your predictions? What do you think is going to happen in the novels still to come?
Yeah, where does this all lead?
What do you think Diana's ultimate fate might be? We genuinely want to know. Head over to the comments section for the Kraken Chronicles deep dive. Tell us your theories.
Please do. We love reading them.
And hey, while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our future exploration.
Hopefully, for all of you listening, especially our Kraken Chronicles BookTube friends, this has shed some new light and maybe sparked some new thoughts about family, power, and identity in the series.
Absolutely.